That powerful request was made by an old man by the name of Caleb. It's found in verse 12 of chapter 14 of the book of Joshua. And I want to use that one verse today just to try to accomplish many things. One, in this sermon, I want to give you a heads up on the next few teaching series so you know where we're sort of headed over the next 5 weeks. This is the first week of a new year, right? So maybe I want to challenge your current faith posture a bit. Maybe you need a little bit more Caleb in you in 2018. At the close of the sermon, I want to pray over, officially send and commission our Beaver Valley core team as they prepare to launch our 6th campus within the month. But first, I want to give you some backstory on that request of Caleb for the hill country. I want to try to maybe give you the why behind his appeal. It began with a promise. After 400 years of captivity and slavery in Egypt, Moses leads the nation of Israel out to the fringes of the promised land. And it says this in Numbers chapter 13, verse 2. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the people of Israel. For each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a chief among them." So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran according to the command of the Lord, all of them men who were the heads of the people of Israel. Did you hear God's promise in there? Did you pick up on it as I went through that? He said, the land which I am giving the people of Israel. There weren't any strings attached to that, right? It's the promised land. It's why it's called the promised land. God promised the land. And through Moses, he gave those spies specific instructions. It says that Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan and said to them, go up into the Negeb and go up into the hill country and see what the land is and whether the people who dwell in it are strong or weak, whether they are few or many, and whether the land that they dwell in is good or bad, and whether the cities that they dwell in are camps or strongholds, and whether the land is rich or poor, and whether there are trees in it or not. Be of good courage and bring some of the fruit of the land. 12 spies, heads of each of the tribes, head out and do this. And they come back with a report. And here's what they say. This is Numbers 13:28. However, the people who dwell in the land are strong, and the cities are fortified and very large. And besides, we saw the descendants of Anakim there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of Negeb. The Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the hill country. And the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the Jordan. But Caleb quieted the people before Moses and says, let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it. Then the men who had gone up with him, we are not able to go against the people, for they are stronger than we are. So they brought the people of Israel a bad report of the land that they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone to spy it out is a land that devours its inhabitants. And all the people that we saw there are of great height. And there we saw Nephilim, the sons of Anak. And we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers. And so we seemed to them. Caleb and Joshua were 2 of the spies and 10 other folks. Caleb and Joshua said, let's go. And they saw the same exact thing that the other 10 saw. And the other 10 came back with a bad report and said, no way, no way. And instead of leaning into the promise that God made them, that the land, he's giving it to them, they shrink back. The whole nation, unwilling to go. They are afraid, and regretfully, they settle for less. So heartbreakingly, in the next chapter, God says this to Caleb regarding the people's decision to stay and not go to the land. It says, then the Lord said, I have pardoned according to your word, but truly as I live, and as all the earth shall be filled with the glory of the Lord, none of the men who have seen my glory and my signs that I did in Egypt and in the wilderness, and yet have put me to the test these 10 times and have not obeyed my voice, shall see the land that I swore to give to their fathers. And none of those who despised me shall see it, but my servant Caleb, because he has a different spirit and has followed me fully, I will bring into the land into which he went, and his descendants shall possess it. And then, folks, 45 years go by as the nation of Israel wanders in the wilderness. They chose not to trust God. They chose not to take him at his word, that the land was indeed theirs. And instead, they settled for a lesser life. I believe those next 45 years was a life full of regrets, a life full of what could have been, a life full of often them saying to one another, what if we would have only trusted God and went? You know, next weekend we launch a 3-part series called The Last Arrow, Living a Life Without Regret. And this series that's coming up, it's actually aimed at avoiding precisely what this generation experienced. They lived a life of regret. And I don't know about you, but for me, like when I finish up one season and I sort of move into the next one, I don't want to look back and have it filled with regrets. What about you? Like if you're finishing maybe college right now, you don't want to look back at it and say, man, I blew that. I didn't invest my time rightly. I didn't take advantage of the opportunity. When you're heading into your 40s, you don't want to look back at your 20s and 30s and say, my gosh, what if? I have so many regrets. If you're heading into your senior years, you certainly don't want to turn around and see in your past, in your rearview mirror, nothing but a bunch of regrets. Here's the theme of this series, the 3 themes that we'll dig into each week. In week 1, we're going to say, I will do what is right even when the odds are against me. The second theme, I will go above and beyond even when no one is looking. And that's called character, by the way. I will not give up even when no one stands with me. I believe this series can be a real game changer for your life. I believe if you apply those principles and you dig into this series, you can come out of a season. You can look back without regrets. It's possible. You can shoot every arrow that God has given you. So 45 years go by, and all the adults of that generation have died, except for 2, Joshua and Caleb, the 2 spies that came back with a good report, right? And Joshua leads the people to the promised land, and he wins battle after battle, just as God promised. And now Joshua is amongst the leaders of the nations, of the different tribes, and he's basically divvying up the land. He's divvying up the promised land to these different sort of groups. And Caleb approaches Joshua. Like, I'm just so thankful that this was recorded. This is an amazing scene. Caleb, his old friend, the other spy that went into the land with him, comes up as Joshua is divvying up the land, right? And he says this to him, and now, behold, the Lord has kept me alive just as he said. These 45 years since the time that the Lord spoke this word to Moses while Israel walked in the wilderness, and now behold, I am this day 85 years old, and I am still as strong as I was in the day that Moses sent me. My strength now is as my strength was then, for war and for going and for coming. And here's that verse. So now give me this hill country of which the Lord spoke on that day. For you heard on that day how the Anakim were there with great fortified cities. It may be that the Lord will be with me, and I shall drive them out, just as the Lord said. That's one of my all-time favorite passages in the entire Bible. It's truly like an epic conversation if you think about it. Caleb approaches Joshua, and he doesn't sort of relay to Joshua all the stuff that he's done in the past and all of his accomplishments and how he deserves this and how he does that and how he was there and how he handled all these things. No. He just says, I'm 85 years old and I'm not done. Give me the hill country. And I think there's a few things in there for us, right? For 2018. There's got to be a few things in there for us to consider as we head into this new year. One is this: Caleb is making it clear he's not done. And let me just say to everybody, whether you're old and battle worn or young and battle ready, Caleb is reminding all of us, you're not done. Caleb, he did not recount to Joshua all of his past, battles and accomplishment. He resists the temptation in that moment to live in the past. And instead, he focuses on the future, and he's 85 years old, right? Folks, we are called to build on the past, but not live there. We are to live in the future. Let me just ask all of us a question. When was the last big trust moment that you had with God? When is the last time that you set aside fears, maybe faced some giants, and trusted God to move mountains? Maybe this year it's the year to stop thinking about that mission trip. Maybe it's the year to stop thinking about getting baptized. Maybe it's the year to stop thinking about beginning to live a generous life and do it, because you're not done, right? You're not done until you're dead. And if you're alive and breathing right now, my simple question is to you, what are you going to trust God with in 2018? Secondly, Caleb had every right at this point in his life to ask for a sweet piece of land in his inheritance in the promised land, right? He could have asked for the condo on the ocean front, right? He could have went up to Joshua and said, man, hey, listen, I was faithful. I went up and spied out that land, right? And me and you, we came back with the good reports. And for these last 45 years, I have been dedicated and committed to God. So I want a prime piece of real estate in the promised land. But instead, he asked for the hill country where the Anakim still roam. What does that mean? Why that area? The Bible refers several times to the descendants of Anak. The Anakim, they were perceived to be gigantic people, brutal, sort of master, fierce warriors. The 10 spies with the bad report, they told of them. And through Moses, God even acknowledges that they were present in the land. So get this, when the nation of Israel came into the promised land, they defeated the inhabitants. And the remnants of those defeated peoples fled to the hill country. So please make sure you're fully understanding what Caleb is asking for as his inheritance. He's not looking for a soft, cushy place to retire. He is saying, give me the hill country where the giants still roam. I'm not ready for comfort and predictability. I'm not done. I want the hills where I can wage war on the giants that are still there. So here's my second challenge, maybe for some of you to think about heading into 2018. Folks, don't live, or put it this way, refuse to live just inside the door to the kingdom. As your pastor, this is one of my greatest concerns for you, because I see so many people that at some point, maybe it's as a teenager, maybe it's when you were going through a really challenging time in your life, maybe it's recently that you heard the gospel, man, and it sunk deep into your heart and it changed you. And in that moment, you said yes. And that's a very real and sincere moment that you made a decision to believe and to trust in Jesus. Please hear me on that. That's amazing. Like, that's amazing. You're loved. You're forgiven. Your eternity is secured. But don't stop there. Don't live the remainder of your life just inside that door. Right? God has a plan and a journey for you. He has a land for you to explore, and he has your own giants to conquer. Predictability and comfort are not characteristics of a Christ follower. Caleb said, I'm not done, and I'm not going to play it safe. Give me the hill country. And I believe with all my heart, God is still looking for Calebs, young and old, that are willing to move away from that door and head towards the hills where the giants still roam. Lastly, what is the giant in your life that you need to drive out in 2018? And I'm not talking about New Year's resolutions here. Frankly, I think that's too soft, right? Go to the gym, lose a few pounds, call your mom more. All right, so there, good. Pick one of those. That's a great resolution. I want to push yourself. I want to push you just a little bit beyond that. What is the giant in your life right now that you don't drive it out this year, it has the possibility of ruining you? What is the giant in your life that if you don't pursue it and subdue it and achieve it, you might regret it for the rest of your life? Your giant could be something that's holding you back. Your giant could be something that you have been uniquely created to accomplish, yet for whatever reason, you will not trust God, and therefore you're settling for a lesser life. Our lives will always be filled with giants. And like Caleb, we should embrace them and battle them. The challenge is in 2018, would be your year to pursue your giant and drive it out. You know, the church is always going to have its giants. Jesus warned the church, he warned his disciples about the giants that would come against his people, his church, sin and brokenness, and the enemy and the world, right, will be some of the giants that will press against the church. But Jesus told Peter this about the church. He said, and I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. Folks, giants, they'll be present, but they will not prevail in the church, and same goes for you in your life. I believe that there's a specific giant that has roamed the rivers and the hills of our region for many years, and it's called religion. Because I think religion tells people it's all about rules. It's all about all that you're doing wrong. I think at times religion can leave us feeling really guilt-ridden and absolutely worn out. I think at times that the giant of religion has been so concerned about preserving traditions and customs of the past that we've lost some of our next and younger generation. Folks, religion has a place. It gives us context for what happens when we die, for how I'm supposed to live my life, for how I'm supposed to engage in my marriage and conduct raising my kids. Religion, it provides us ethical and moral boundaries, and it provides us some certainty in uncertain times. But Jesus came to make it clear that religion has a place, and it's not first place. It's not. Relationship with God and with each other, grace and mercy always need to be first place. Did you know that currently across our nation, 80% of the churches have either plateaued or are in decline? And in those churches that are in decline, the primary message from their leadership and from their membership is this: please stay. Please stay. Sadly, they tend to be very inwardly focused and fixated on traditions and on preferences and on styles. They are holding on to the way things used to be, and they are often burdened by the giant of religion. And after that 3-part series called The Last Arrow, we've created a 2-part series titled Reckless. I just want you to hear this. This is what this series is about. God is not some oppressive rule maker that's bent on draining all the fun out of your life, right? He is a God of reckless love, willing to leave the 99 to go and pursue the one that is lost. And as a church, we're supposed to imitate that kind of reckless love and not get fixated on traditions and preferences and styles. We are to be focused on pursuing the one that is lost. That is why, Northway, we can never become a please stay church. Rather, we must always be a please come church. A church that is willing to sacrifice preference and style in order to invite someone to please come that might be far from the Lord. Please hear me on this. I'm not asking you to invite your friends that are deeply involved in another church, right? That are active there, that are being fed there, that are diving in there, that are being cared for there. Don't invite them to come. In fact, if you've got a friend that's involved in there's so many wonderful churches throughout the Pittsburgh region. If you've got a friend that's involved in one of those churches, right, encourage them to dig deeper, to go for it, man, get more involved. I don't know, I'm probably not asking you to invite that friend of yours that has been to like 3 or 4 churches in the last year and always finds something wrong with it. Don't invite them, because they're going to find something wrong with us too, right? Who am I asking you to invite? The people where you live, work, and play. The people that you know that are not involved in a church. The people that you know desperately need the hope of the gospel. The church isn't going to fix them. Jesus is going to fix them. That's who you invite. Please do it respectfully. And do it persistently, and do it prayerfully. But I want to warn some of you of something else. Within a few years, I'm going to be asking some of you to please go. What do I mean by that? At some point, we're going to launch our 7th location. And for some of you, it's going to be closer to where you live, work, and play than your current Northway campus is. At that point, I'm going to ask you to be part of a core team that launches that campus, to please go and do that. And I just want to acknowledge and let you know that I understand that's a big ask. At the close of our service, we're going to send and pray over a number of people, some of them from our Wexford location, some of them from our Swickley Valley location. Some of them have just sort of joined part of this core team that live up in those areas. And if that's you, like if you have decided to be part of this launch team to launch out Northway Beaver Valley, and you have no past connection with Northway, thank you, man. Thank you for giving us a chance. Thank you for taking the risk and joining us as we launch out. All of our locations are going to be able to participate in that moment at the close of the service. In some cases, this launch team, these folks that are doing this, they're leaving a church they've been at 5 years, 25 years. They're leaving a home group. They're leaving predictability and comfort. But let me say it again, predictability and comfort are not characteristics of Christ followers. On the weekend of February 4th, change is going to happen at Northway. we will officially and publicly launch a new campus. Give me the hill country. Beaver Valley, our campus sits on one of the highest points in that area. Give me that hill country. We're going out in faith, and we're going to launch out with 2 services, a 9:15 and 11. And on that same day, I just want to speak directly to Northway Dormont right now. On that same day, you guys are going to 3 Sunday morning services. You'll go from 2 to 3, and you'll have services at 8:30 and 10 and 11:30. Awesome. Folks, we're going to be adjusting our service times at our other locations in order to prepare for future growth. On February 4th, we moved from 5 campuses and 11 services to 6 campuses and 14 services. Change and growth are good things. Jesus started a movement that was led by visionaries, men and women of great courage 2,000 years ago. And I just think, sadly, sometimes in some churches, it's turned into churches that are now led by historians or traditionalists or managers. Pastor Erwin McManus at Mosaic Church in Los Angeles, one of my favorite pastors, he said this: how did we become the last bastion of the protection of yesterday instead of the epicenter of the creation of tomorrow? The church was never supposed to be known for its grip on tradition. Rather, it was supposed to be known for its love of humanity. The church is not here for us. We are the church, and we are here for the world. I firmly believe that there are a lot of people out there that they want to know how to live, not how to die. Northway, what if as a church we decided to build on the past, but not live there, to live for the future? What if collectively as a church and as individuals, we said, we're not done yet? What if we stop settling for living just inside kingdom's door? And what if we really pursued the giants in our region and in our lives? Give me the hill country where the giants still roam. We're going to pray over our Beaver Valley core team as we send them to the hill country. And your campus pastor is going to step up now, and he's going to show you how that you can participate in this in unity across all of our locations.